Hello and welcome again to another episode of Canadian History Ehx. Today, we're looking at the Lost Patrol of 1911. Over the course of 17 years, the Royal Northwest Mounted Police would make the long trip from Dawson City in the Yukon to Fort McPherson in the Northwest Territories. The purpose of this trip was to deliver supplies and mail, and generally, it was a boring affair. That was until 1911, when things were changed and a patrol went from Fort McPherson to Dawson City instead of the other way around. The journey led by Inspector Francis Joseph Fitzgerald would go down as one of the great tragedies of the RCMP. Now before moving forward, let's take a look at Inspector Fitzgerald. Born in Halifax on April 12, 1869, Francis Fitzgerald served in the Halifax militia until the age of 19, when he made the decision to enlist as a constable with the Northwest Mounted Police on November 19, 1888. For the next 9 years, he served in the Maple Creek district of Saskatchewan. When he was 28, he would go on to be the first person to chart an overland route from Edmonton to Fort Selkirk in the Yukon. The journey, which took 11 months and covered 1,600 kilometers, earned Fitzgerald a promotion to corporal. In 1899, he joined up with the 2nd Canadian Mounted Rifles and served in the Second Boer War. His heroic service in the war brought him to the attention of Commissioner Perry in Regina, who promoted him to sergeant. In 1902, he traveled to England as part of the Northwest Mounted Police contingent, attending the coronation of Edward VII. In 1903, he established a police post on Herschel Island in the Arctic, where he was stationed for 6 years with little contact with the outside world. In 1909, he would have a daughter with a local Inuit woman, and also be promoted to inspector. In 1910, he was selected as part of the contingent to attend the coronation of George V, and to get him out of the north, he was selected to head the patrol from Fort McPherson to Dawson City. Which brings us back to the patrol. Going on the patrol with Fitzgerald would be Constables Richard O'Hara Taylor, George Francis Kinney, and their guide, Special Constable Sam Carter. The men also took 15 dogs, 3 sleds, and enough food to last them an entire month. They also carried 20 kilograms of parcels, and this would be the first patrol for both Kinney and Taylor. Setting out on December 21, 1910, for the first 4 days of the patrol, the men traveled 105 kilometers, which was very good considering the days were getting colder and colder. On Christmas Day, the men traveled an excellent 26 kilometers. On December 26th, they covered 30 kilometers in only 6 hours, but they found they had missed a turn the previous day upon stumbling upon a First Nations camp. They completed the first leg of the journey, and for the second leg, they hired First Nations guide Asau George for $3 a day. When the second leg was complete, George was let go, with Fitzgerald trusting that Carter could lead them to the next section. Unfortunately, Carter had only done the trip once and in the other direction. This decision is an odd one considering that they had missed a turn on the trail in the first leg, which led them to hire George for the second leg. As it would turn out, George was the last person to see the men alive. By January 12, 1911, the group was lost as Carter struggled to find Forest Creek. The group traveled up and down various streams to find the right one, but supplies were dwindling fast. With only a few days of rations left, Fitzgerald would make a note in his journal saying, "My last hope is gone. I should not have taken Carter's word that he knew the way from Little Wind River." The next day, the patrol changed direction, going in reverse to find the right trail to get back to Fort McPherson rather than go on to Dawson City. The trip back was not any better. On January 12th, Fitzgerald wrote in his journal, 37 below, fine with slight headwind. Sent Carter to look for portage, but he could not find it. On January 17th, Fitzgerald wrote, Carter is completely lost and does not know one river from another. We have only 10 bags of flour and 8 bags of bacon and some dried fish. My last hope is gone, and the only thing I can do is return and kill some dogs to feed the others and myself, unless we can meet some Indians. The men were so weak they could only walk a few miles a day, and sometimes not at all. From January 18th to February 5th, 10 dogs were killed for food. The following are Fitzgerald's entries in his diary until February 5th. January 18th, 13 below, killed the first dog tonight for dog feed. Hardly any of the dogs would eat him, and we had to give them a little dried fish. Our food consisted of a small piece of bannock and dried fish. January 19th, 28 below, very misty with a slight southwest wind. We were at times ankle deep in water. Killed another dog tonight, 21 miles. January 20th, 21 below, very strong southwest gale all day. Ate the last of the flour and the bacon. All we have now is some dried fish and tea. January 21st, 0, strong gale, killed another dog tonight, 20 miles. January 22nd, 50 below in the AM, 64 below in the PM. Carter's fingers are badly frozen. January 23rd, 64 below, misty with strong headwinds. January 24th, 56 below, strong south wind with heavy mist. Left camp at 7:30 and found the river open right across. Constable Taylor got up to his waist and Carter to his hip. We had to go into camp at 11 a.m. Killed another dog, and all hands made a good meal on dog meat. January 25th, 53 below, killed another dog. Our food is now dog meat and tea, 18 miles. January 26th, 21 below, going heavy in deep snow. All hands and dogs are getting weak, 8 miles. January 27th, 13 below, heavy snowstorm with heavy mists. Camped at Rout's tent at 2 p.m. Searched tent and cache for food but found none. Going very heavy. Killed another dog. We now have only 9 dogs. The rest have gone for food, 11 miles. January 28th, 45 below, strong south wind with mist. Taylor sick last night and all day. Going very heavy. January 29th, 20 below. Killed another dog tonight. Men and dogs very weak. Cached 1 sled and wrapper with 7 dog harnesses in there. January 30th, 51 below. All hands feeling sick. Supposed to be from eating dog liver. January 31st, 45 below, 62 below in PM. Skin peeling off our faces and parts of our body, lips all swollen and split. I suppose this is caused by eating dog meat. Everybody felt the cold very much for want of proper food, 17 miles. February 1st, 51 below. Killed another dog tonight. This makes 8 dogs we've killed and we've eaten most of them. We fed what dried fish we had to the dogs, 16 miles. February 2nd, 7 above, 23 below in PM. Got astray in the mist. February 3rd, 26 below. Killed another dog tonight. Men and dogs very thin and weak and cannot travel far. We have traveled about 200 miles on dog meat and still have about 100 miles to go, but I think we will make it out all right. February 4th, 52 below, going very heavy, and everybody suffered very much from the cold. On day 47 of the patrol, February 5th, 1911, the last entry would go into the diary of Fitzgerald. February 5th, 48 below. Just after noon, I broke through the ice and had to make a fire. Found 1 foot slightly frozen, killed another dog tonight. Have only 5 dogs now, and can only go a few miles a day. 8 miles. It was around this date that Taylor and Kinney could go no further and a camp was made, and Fitzgerald left what supplies he could with his companions. He and Carter pressed forward. Now by this time, officers in Dawson Creek were starting to get worried as the patrol was approaching 1 month late. A relief patrol was sent out to find the men on February 28th, led by Corporal William John Dempster. As the rescue patrol moved towards Fort McPherson, they found clues to the original patrol's location. This included a cached toboggan, as well as dog bones, a dispatch bag, mail sack, and 7 sets of harnesses from January 29th. Nearly 1 month later, and 3 months to the day that the patrol left Fort McPherson, the patrol was found. Kinney and Taylor were both dead, side by side in the open camp. Kinney had died from starvation while Taylor had shot himself in the head. The men were found around a burned-out campfire. In a large kettle on the fire was a partially cooked sled harness. On March 22nd, the following day, Fitzgerald and Carter were both found. Both men had died from the cold and hunger, only 40 kilometers away from Fort McPherson. Fitzgerald had laid Carter's body in the snow and covered his face with a handkerchief. Fitzgerald lay down in the snow a few hundred yards away and soon died. On the body of Fitzgerald was his will. Scrawled with charcoal on paper, it read, "All money in dispatch bag and bank, clothes, etc. I leave to my dearly beloved mother, Mrs. John Fitzgerald, Halifax. God bless all." There were many reasons for the patrol's failure. The inexperience of Carter led to the men becoming lost, while the minus 45 to minus 62 degree temperatures led to the men becoming weak and frostbitten. By the time a search party was organized, all the men were already dead. Upon the return of the search party, Reverend Whitaker somehow obtained Fitzgerald's diary and wrote a deeply critical letter stating that Fitzgerald was ill-prepared, ill-guided, and had poor dogs. The mounted police were very unhappy with his critical look at the patrol, and they issued deep denials of the allegations. All 4 men were buried at Fort McPherson on March 28, 1911. 2 decades later, all 4 were cemented into a large tomb with 4 corners connected by a chain as memorial. Patrols continued for 10 years, but due to the tragedy, future patrols always had a First Nations guide, and cabins along with supply caches were established along the trail. In addition, the trail between the 2 communities was clearly marked to ensure no one ever got lost again. Today, a bridge at the Halifax Public Gardens is named in the honor of Fitzgerald, as is a community in northern Alberta. The community, located 339 kilometers north of Fort McMurray, was originally called Smith Landing. In 1915, the name was changed to honor Fitzgerald. In 1978, a TV movie starring Leslie Nielsen was made about the patrol. George R. Robertson, who played Chief Hurst in the Police Academy movies, played Francis Fitzgerald while also writing the movie. Dempster, the man who led the relief patrol, would become an inspector and serve in the Yukon for 37 years. He would retire in 1934 and pass away in Vancouver in 1965. The Dempster Highway, which runs from the Klondike Highway to Fort McPherson, is named for him. Information for this piece comes from Wikipedia, the RCMP Heritage Project, the History of Saskatchewan and the Old Northwest, Death Winds in the Arctic, the Lost Patrol of 1910, Land of the Midnight Sun, A History of the Yukon, and Place Names of Alberta, Volume 4. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Canadian History Ehx, and if you did, please give a like and a review. You can reach me at crwbaird@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter at craigbaiרד and on Instagram at bairdo37. See you next time.